And for our audience benefit, Geng Ping Liu is my colleague and also partner at Vertex Venture Southeast Asia.
And what we also say is that he's the part-time
co-founder. Yeah. So he led the deal in Nium when they are raising Series A. So when you mentioned about how Nium ran out of money, I remember that Pratik, recently published about the 3 times when Nium nearly run out of money, and I think 2017 was the first time, and then secondly it was the pandemic in 2020. So I think that was when you truly take a pay cut, right? Yeah, and how did that feel? And how long was the pay cut for? How was the whole journey leading up to the point that you finally raised 20 million and really propelling Nium to the unicorn status?
So those were difficult times as well, right? I mean, the background is the fact that COVID had hit. We had no clue how to manage it. We didn't know what the impact on the business is going to be. And but we were almost certain that what the rest of the world is saying is that it's going to be deleterious to the health of our industry. And but we were also seeing that the volumes were actually going up.
Yes.
So we didn't understand, maybe it's just temporary or whatever else. And and the prelude to all this was the fact that one of the larger rounds that we were negotiating at that point in time had fallen through.
I see.
Right. So it was a large round that we were looking for at that point in time. And one of the larger entities of the world were the ones who were leading that round. So here we were, short runway. And what we were sure about is that we want to be the last one standing. So, and one thing that we don't like to do is to lay off people, especially in times when, the rest of the world is in a bad shape. Then, if you just let people off, then what do? They've got families to support. So we said the most equitable solution is to get an equal pay cut, which we decided was 30%. Pratik himself took a 50% cut, right, to be the one to take the maximum. And the one good thing that we did, of course, was that we told everyone that whatever it is that you're losing by way of your 30%, we will compensate that by giving you 2 times of that as ESOPs. So, but within a few months, we actually saw that, listen, it's actually doing pretty well. I mean, the business is doing well. There's nothing which is negative. So why do we have to worry? So we normalized within about, I think, 6-7 months.
Got it.
And people who earned the ESOPs at that point in time, which didn't include seniors like me, I mean, they actually earned good money. I mean, because not only did they get double the amount that they lost, but the valuation of the company itself went.
What is the hard truth about being a COO here?
I think the hard truth really is the fact that sometimes you take stances which are, which could be not very popular in the short term, right? So for instance, one of the things that we are trying to do, for instance, right now is to see how we can turn to profitability, right? And that means being super careful about what kind of expenses we do, what kind of people we hire, how many people we hire. It's not always an easy decision to put across to somebody who really feels that they need the people right now.
Yeah.
And then we have to go back and try and check that, hey, listen, all over the world, people are firing people. So why are you so intent on getting, someone to such an expensive resort to be hired right now?
Understand.
So there are these instances which always happen, but on the whole, I think because of the fact that I've been there in the business also for so long, people do understand and appreciate, if there is a stance which is taken, and I think generally there's nothing so hard that I have to worry about it when I go back home.
Well, Nium has grown so much over the years, and during the pandemic, I realized that when I was doing research, you guys have made some acquisition, right? And one acquisition was actually the company
InstaReM, yes.
Yeah. And there was a time when travel was, all doom and gloom. So what led to the decision?
That's another, another indelible memory, which is part of our psyche here. So again, I told you what the background was, right? COVID had hit us, funding had failed, people had got their salaries cut. But one thing that we were sure about is that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. There is an adage about never ever wasting a crisis. And what we could see was that, travel industry is in a pretty bad shape. But if you look at the law of averages, it will eventually come back to where it used to be. And except that when you are in the middle of a crisis, you never realize that you can actually come out of it, right? So we started talking to people in the market saying, we are available in case people want to sell us something. At that point in time, to remind you once again, we were running short of money ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. So for us to ask for us whether we can buy another company was a very, should I say courageous in a very simple terms. And as luck would have it, we had these two opportunities, which were both in the travel sector. And as you said, travel was a very bad 4-letter word in COVID, right? And this company actually had negative revenues. So which means that they were actually returning more of customer funds, earlier bookings, than they were doing more fresh bookings. But we said we'll be very interested in the company, and we bid for the company, and they asked for a fairly largish one-time non-refundable fee, which we ended up giving. And I can tell you we didn't have a lot more money lying in the bank account after that. But the good part was we were, it was not a foolhardy decision, because I know that Vertex had already come back and said, listen, if you really want money, we can give you, support. We were already talking to a few, large VCs at that point in time. And this was just pre the unicorn status in any case. So, and we've always been super confident about, even in the worst of times, we've been confident about our survivability. We never thought that we'll not survive. Yes, we had those moments where, you'd be worried about, hey, where's the next salary going to come from, but never about the survivability of the business as such. So, the business did come back the way that we had anticipated, and it came back earlier than we had thought, because the COVID effects, people underestimated the human tendency to try and become as normal as possible. So people wanted to travel. Travel came back with a bang. Now, both of these
traveling.
two,
Revenge traveling. Yeah.
Revenge traveling. So both of these two companies today are not only cash accretive, but they've also given us, some very strong positioning within the markets in which they are based out of. So, for instance, Europe, we were not very great in, but because we acquired InstaReM, we became pretty strong in Europe. India also, we didn't have a license, but when we acquired the erstwhile Wirecard entity there, we became, pretty powerful. And along with that came some very good teams, by the way. So, and those teams are doing pretty well in our company at this stage as well. So, all in all, I think it was a well thought out strategy. People may, go back and say, hey, listen, was it foolhardy? I don't think it was. I think it was well thought out. And but it also helps that it worked out well in the end.
Yeah. And when you're sharing, I'm just so impressed by the courage that both of you and the management team have taken, right? And really preparing the company even before you know that what's going to happen next. And in my mind, I just see this jigsaw puzzle, like how you are seeing the gaps in your puzzle and really gathering the pieces and then putting them together so that it's a more complete piece.
Absolutely. And remember that what we acquired was not a newbie company. It had at its peak, they were doing some good revenues and very stable processes, good people, and that was the one thing that we learned out of the due diligence that we did. That the company is pretty solid. It's just going through a bad economic time. And, from my time in the investments also, if you look for companies which are temporarily in some kind of disorder, then eventually they'll end up giving you a lot of benefit in the end.
Great. And I think, as Niam make more and more acquisition, and I believe that your role as a COO will be partly to kind of integrate these new businesses. So what's the hard truth about that, working with acquired businesses?
So I'll tell you, my hard truth comes from my being part of a company which was acquired, which was, the entity I told you in Citibank. And one of the fantastic things that I learned from that experience is because Citibank had been fed a lot of stories that, hey, listen, these company, these people, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know how they're making so much money. They must be doing something wrong. But when the first level of interactions happened between the most senior people in Citi India and us, they realized that actually there's no truth in the fact that it's all, bad management. They actually liked us. So what they did very wisely is they put up walls around us and they basically said, these guys are not to be disturbed. And, during that period was the most golden period for the company that, we became, as part of Citibank, we also blossomed very well. So that was a big learning for me as well. And this is what we did. So integrations, by the way, Elise, they fail. Not integrations, but acquisitions fail because the company which is acquiring tends to put their strength behind and to say that you guys are wrong, we guys are right. Because we are the ones who have acquired you, right? And not take them on merit. We were absolutely certain that we don't want that to happen. So for the first 1 year, we did not interfere at all with the businesses that which we acquired, right? And the evidence was overwhelming because they were doing so fantastically well without any integration of compliance policies and, anything, right? They had their own financial systems, for instance, which were not as great as us. But hey, listen, they'd been in existence for 18 years and they'd done very well, thank you, right? So I think that's been the great hard truth, that you let companies be. Don't impose your will. And when the timing is right, let them feel comfortable, let you be comfortable. Then you come together and see how you can, work for a better company together. So same thing we did with Wirecard. That continues to be, almost a standalone entity right now. But not to say that we don't look at the numbers or, we are confident about them. Like Citi was confident about the company that they had acquired. We were confident about the back-end systems and the people, and that's how we gave them the independence to run.
When I was speaking to, many founders, I realized that there's some, similar trends that's going through all of you. I think one is about really recognizing strengths, and also empowering people. And I think that's what you are showing through the actions of working with the two entities that you have acquired.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when we empower people, when we put people in the right place, you definitely see them blossoming.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing.
And like I said, I think those people have also done well in the larger Nium context. So the person who used to be the chairman for Exaris is now the head of the entire combined entities for Europe. The person who was the chief operating officer for Exaris is doing a sterling job with us as the head of global cards business for Nium and Exaris, right? And these are people who've done, they've given us a lot of value addition to the rest of our business as well. So, I think we are really pleased with how it worked out.
So what do you think is the hard truth about running your own startup?
You mean besides traveling the lowest cost airlines and staying in the cheapest hotels? I think you understand the value of money a lot more.
Yeah.
You understand that, you're used to. I'll tell you, when I was in the biggest corporate jobs, traveling business class was never an issue, right?
It's like taken for granted.
Taken for granted.
Yeah.
And we, in fact, argued in one of the companies that even domestic travel in India, whether it's for 1 hour or 2 hours, should be business, right? And these excesses tend to happen in any bigger companies. So I think you learn the value of your work because you know that you're the most critical part of the entire structure, especially if it's your own outfit. So what you do, you'll be able to get the benefit and see the result of it pretty quickly. And of course, the fact that the results can be very outsized whenever they do happen in the right way. And then, of course, the fact that you have to be super careful about expenses. I think there are a lot of positives in trying out and trying to be an entrepreneur by yourself.
Yes. So Pratik, you mentioned about you catching the entrepreneurial bug twice. So I was just wondering, what do you mean by that? Like, how did it happen? How do you feel?
So there's a bit of a personal story behind this. My dad was quite entrepreneurial. So he actually used to work for a large newspaper back in Delhi. And he was doing well, but he always felt that he wasn't earning enough to support a good life for all of us. So he had these side hustles that he used to keep doing. And one of them was something that I found interesting. And I was a kid, right? So what he said is that any company which wants to bid for tenders with the government, right? In the pre-internet days, there wasn't a central repository for it. So, for instance, anybody based out of Mumbai, like a manufacturer, if they had to bid for a tender, they could do it with the help of some advertisement for a tender which would get published in a Mumbai paper, but wouldn't know if there was anything that was happening in their industry, for instance, in the south of India. So since he was in the newspaper industry, he had this idea. He said, I'm going to get newspapers from all over India. So he used to get some 40, 50 papers a day. And he used to cut the tenders and I used to help him and I used to put them in categories of different industries. Then we used to paste them on a piece of paper. And then we used to do something called cyclostyle. I don't know if you even know what that means. But it used to take a long time for it to be printed, and then we used to fold it and put it into envelopes, and I used to put the stamp of under postal certificate, and then I used to take my bike and put them in bulk as a cold mail, a real mail, into many of these companies who might be interested in giving us a subscription service.
Oh, wow. And brilliant.
So when kids of my age were playing football and cricket, I was actually helping my father at that point in time. And it's not as if I was missing out on my plays. I really used to like helping him do all that. And then what I saw is that maybe a week, 10 days after we had done the first batch of the posting, the first check came in.
Wow.
And the joy that gave to everyone in the household was amazing. That, the first time when you could see the result of whatever you worked hard on came out. And then over the next few days, a whole stream of these checks came out. So that really, showed that if you work hard enough, you can actually get the right results. And that actually put the seeds of being an entrepreneur in me.
And if I were to ask you to describe the culture at Nium, how would you describe?
I'll tell you that it's an evolving story.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you why. Because, we were a couple of hundred of people till a couple of years ago, right? And then not only did we expand, but we also acquired these companies, which brought in a lot of people. We got a lot of senior people replaced also, and we got newer and newer people. So what's the culture? How do you describe it? So I'll tell you what it is that we feel, and these are not things that I have said, but if you ask somebody who's been in the system for about 6 months, I think what they'll say about the culture is, it's extremely open. So it's not like a bank where there are hierarchies and, you need permissions to speak to some senior person. Anyone can approach Prajit, me, any other senior in the company. even if it's an intern, we are happy to talk to them, right? There's never airs around us. So we are happy to listen to their ideas. We welcome these ideas. So that's the one part of thing, which is the positive aspect of the culture.
Definitely.
The negative aspect, if I may call it that, actually it's not only it's not really negative also, right? Because so the madness, which is a part of any startup.
Yeah.
So the fact that we'll always try and punch above our weight, that we'll try and juggle several balls at the same time, are all things that it's not something which is the cup of tea for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people are very structured. They'll say, I'm going to do this today and I will only do that and nothing else. I'm sorry, that doesn't work in a company like us.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think these are two things. Besides that, we have value systems. So we have what we call Simply Better Together, which is a very catchy frame, which basically means that, simply means that how do you make things simple rather than make them complex? Better stands for which processes that you can work on to make things more efficient. And together means because we are in so many different time zones, different cultures, different races, different countries. How do you bring everyone together so they all work together for the same objective? So Simply Better Together.
I love
That's really
that.
great,
I love the slogan, Simply Better Together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, for spending your time with us. And I want to go back to, your mention about people being too structured. But I love that, what you are bringing to the table, because I'm sure you are a structured and organized person, but at the same time being able to handle the chaos that's happening all around you. And even when I speak to you, I'm sure at the back of your mind, something you're thinking about work or in operations, but you just have this calm, persona that you exude during the interview. And I think that is impressive.
Thank you very much.
So,
you are right. I am thinking about a few things which are going on in the backdrop.
Yeah. So thank you again, Pratik. It's so nice to have you on our podcast.
It was absolutely superb to be here. Thank you so much, Elise.
Thank you.